Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Insider Insights and Winning Strategies for B2B Marketplaces. I'm Louis Carbonnier, co-founder and president at Hokodo. I'm super happy to welcome you on this webinar with a roster of marketplace founders and operators to share a lot of insider tips. So we're just 1 minute past 11 a.m. UK, 1 minute past noon CET. So we're going to give maybe 1 or 2 minutes for people to join, get on board, prepare a cup of coffee, and then we'll kick off. Okay, let's get started in 30 seconds. Can you hear me well? Yeah. Okay. Welcome everyone to the Insider Insights and Winning Strategies for B2B Marketplaces. E-commerce is the one growing channel in B2B trade, and within e-commerce, there's the special segment of marketplaces which is growing even faster. This has been the case in B2C, but more and more we see that same trend happening in B2B. So we thought there's so much demand these days for B2B marketplaces, questions about how they work. Are they going to take over traditional players? That we thought that it would be a good time to eventually do a webinar on this topic with a bunch of experts that can give us the insider stories and the war anecdotes about setting up a B2B marketplace. So what's on the agenda today? We'll start with a quick round of intros so that you can get acquainted with that star-studded panel. And then we'll spend 3 minutes to introduce the B2B Marketplace Knowledge Hub, which is launching today. And to my knowledge, it's the first compendium of resources about B2B marketplaces. Then we'll go into a panel with our experts today talking about how to start a B2B marketplace. I have to really emphasize B2B because B2B is pretty different from B2C in a lot of respects. And then we'll leave 10 minutes at the end for a Q&A. Don't be shy. Feel free to drop those questions in the chat, and we'll tackle them at the end. So this should take us 45 to 60 minutes. Let's dive in and say hello to our panelists. So I'm going to follow the order that we can see here on screen and ask each of our panelists to say a few words to introduce themselves. Ilias, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, thanks, Louis. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Ilias. I'm the CEO and co-founder of WikiFarmer. So WikiFarmer started actually as the Wikipedia of farming some years ago, but later on evolved into a marketplace that connects Mediterranean mostly farmers, producers, and cooperatives to businesses from mostly Europe, Middle East, and Asia. So yes, nice to
and
meet
you're
you.
growing incredibly fast as well.
Yes, I mean it's something that we spend a lot of time to find the right way to grow, but now I think we have found our ideal customer profile, and we have managed to offer all the services that these customers need, together with your services, with your help as well.
So we'll dive into that in a minute.
Sure.
Next up, Carolina, welcome on board.
Yes, hello. My name is Carolina Lemonway. I am the founder and CEO of Circulate, where our goal is to speed up the transition to a more circular economy and a healthier planet for us all through. We are an automated and intelligent procurement platform for sustainable packaging, also automating data and reporting around packaging. Where in our marketplace we gather all the best suppliers of sustainable packaging, and then use different kinds of data and smart tools to be able to select and find the right packaging, but then also automate all the reporting for ESG reporting afterwards of the packaging that you're consuming. We're based in Sweden.
100% B2B.
Yes, B2B is life.
It's the name of the game.
So good.
Good transition to welcome another founder of a B2B marketplace, Ciro. Do you want to say a few words?
Yes, sure. Hi, Louis, and thank you for the invitation. And hi, everyone, also for who is joining today. Yes, so I'm Ciro, the co-founder and CEO of Mirta. We are a B2B marketplace reinventing fashion wholesale. So we connect more than 500 brands, fashion brands on one side, and on the other side, more than 2,000 retailers worldwide. So I have a background in strategy, digital, and e-commerce, and basically for the last 10 years worked across topics of digital innovation and disruption in general in different industries and markets.
And for those who didn't guess, it's fitting for a fashion B2B marketplace that you're based in Milan, even though you have a global footprint with your clients. Thanks a lot, Ciro. And then to conclude the panel, Martin from Lemonway.
Thanks a lot, Louis, and hi everyone. Thanks for attending this session. So I am Martin, indeed. I'm the Chief Commercial and Marketing Officer at Lemonway, and so Lemonway, it's a payment system provider dedicated to marketplaces. We are processing approx 10 billion euros in payment flow for marketplaces in 2023. We are operating across Europe, and we are serving indeed B2C, but with a very strong focus B2B marketplaces in which we develop expertise hand in hand with partners such as Okodo. So very glad to connect with you and to exchange on this strategic topic today.
Awesome. And then to round up the intros, my name is Louis Carbonnier. I'm co-founder and president at Okodo. We're a specialist B2B payment solution with a big focus on marketplaces. And what's specific about B2B payments is the notion of deferred payments, paying invoices on terms, 30 days, 60 days. And we help merchants and marketplaces offer those payment terms in the context of an online trade. So let's then move to the next chapter, which is introducing the B2B Marketplace Knowledge Hub, which is a specific hub of resources where operators, leaders in marketplaces can find what they need to scale their platforms. And we'll go through some of the assets. There's a market map, there's a pretty comprehensive report, cheat sheet. And I think it's also useful for sellers on marketplaces, for brands, to see what is the attraction of a marketplace, how the economics work, what could there be in it for me to start selling my products on a given marketplace, how to choose the right marketplace. And conversely, it also helps buyers understand what to look for in a B2B marketplace and what's in it for them beyond just discovering new products. And I think in B2B, we'll get to that, but a common thread is that there's much more than just finding a product. So talking about the report, it's released today, not a coincidence, obviously. Very thick piece of research. We're extremely proud and very, very grateful to all the experts that have contributed to it. We surveyed hundreds of marketplaces and leaders to understand their journey, their pains, their challenges, and also their secret tips for winning in building a marketplace. So to everyone attending this webinar, by the way, you'll get a follow-up email with a link to be able to download that piece of that report. Then something that I really like, and that has been the embryo of the Marketplace Hub, is a map of all the B2B marketplaces in Europe. So it's the ultimate list of those marketplaces. And it really started on a napkin 6 years ago when we launched Hokodo, and then gradually we amalgamated a bunch of VCs, of PSPs to start mapping the landscape and understanding who was disrupting what category, what were the trends. And over time, this market map became then the bigger report that we have now. But this is an updated map of the European B2B marketplace landscape. If I remember well, when we did it first in 2019, we had something like 120 marketplaces, and now we have literally hundreds of them, which also says something about the trend that we're seeing in the industry, where the marketplace model is literally, taking over e-commerce. Then, as part of the hub, you'll find a number of excellent resources like how-to guides, cheat sheets, expert interviews, and we aim to produce more and more content, interviews, podcasts with founders, with people who've been in the trenches, PSPs, people who do shipping logistics, who day in, day out experience the pains of returns, cancellations, post-sales events, or how do I aggregate my catalog, how do I display the prices, all those very tangible problems that marketplaces have to solve. And yeah, that's in a way, why did we create the Knowledge Hub? Well, that I kind of covered it. For us, half of the business that we do is B2B marketplaces. We're an e-commerce specialist in B2B payments, but when you say e-commerce in B2B, very quickly you say marketplace. And it's something where we think that we're at the day one of a multi-year trend where marketplaces are going to be fundamentally disrupting vertical industries. And it's going to be very different from what we've had in B2C, where there's one Amazon or one eBay, one Alibaba, kind of covering all the categories. B2B marketplaces go much deeper into their sectors and reorganize the supply chain, the workflows of the suppliers, the buyers. And this has massive impact on the way financial services payments are being brought to the end customers. So over time, being in that part of that transformation and about which we're literally passionate, we realized that a proper knowledge hub was missing, and that we were actually in a good position with some other experts and operators to start to amalgamate this info and share it back to the community, because after all, we're building that community of B2B marketplaces, and what you'll see today is different founders helping each other, sharing their tips as they've been discovering it on the journey. And that journey of B2B marketplaces is, after all, only a decade old. And I think we're all learning together and growing the community together. So without further ado, let's move into the panel discussion. And sorry, let me tap back. And within that panel, we're going to cover some of the most fundamental questions that marketplace leaders grapple with day in, day out. And maybe the first one is like, when you build a marketplace, you have that problem of having two sides of the equation with a group of sellers and a group of buyers, and the buyers won't come if you don't have enough sellers, but the sellers won't come if there's not a long list of buyers already. And there's often a kind of chicken and egg problem that you need to crack to get your marketplace off the ground. And Carolina, Ilias, Ciro, you guys all did it. And it would be great to have your perspective on how you attract buyers and sellers. How do you overcome the chicken and egg problem? And maybe if Carolina, do you want to kick us off on this one?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a valid question that that's quite relevant and often brought up in marketplace context. I think it's also about a bit fake it till you make it, and maybe we've been sort of using demand to grow supply as well. So, I mean, kicking off, we had to have like a store with something in it, and then we managed to onboard a few sellers, but we also just like put up a lot of ghost products, we call them, where we just like add lots of stuff that we find online from someone. And then if somebody accidentally wants to buy these things, we just have to figure out a seller that has them. So it was also a good way for us to measure what things actually people want. And then we also had this functionality of RFQ. So can't find what you're looking for, let us know and we'll make sure to find it for you. And based on that, it's also been so much easier to onboard sellers, because then we can come to the seller and say, hey, we actually have a buyer that wants to buy your stuff. Do you want to be on board? So we've really done like just the bare minimum, filling it with some stuff to show people that there is stuff, even though it's fake.
Yeah.
And then we've always been using demand to grow supply.
Super interesting, and there's that element of growth hacking that you had along the way.
Because you also don't want to onboard a lot of suppliers that buyers don't want to buy from. So also it's like it's actually better to like understand what is it that the buyers want and make sure that you only onboard those kind of suppliers as well. So
yeah, of course. And that reminds me of a conversation that I was having with a VC who was telling me that a common mistake was for the marketplace founder to go into a rabbit hole for a year onboarding suppliers, only to just because they were ashamed of the catalog, and just to find out 1 year later that the buyers actually wanted something different from what they'd been building. Maybe if I turn to Ciro, in a completely different vertical fashion, where I guess supply is massively important and you have very picky buyers. How did you crack that problem?
Yeah, thank you, Luino. So our perspective is a little bit different on this, because I guess that from our experience, probably, depending on the industry, the market in which you are, then you need to figure out who has like the more power, the demand or the supply, basically. And in our case, we immediately found out actually that the supply, so the seller, so the brands, that's where the power was, because in the end, we are an heterogeneous marketplace. So if you are looking for a specific product, like that type of shoe or that bag, there is just one supplier that is producing it, no one else in the world, And typically, as you said, our buyers are very picky. So they are not just, looking for a leather bag. They're looking for exactly that leather bag from that supplier. So the supply was really, so given the branding, and all we know about, the fashion and luxury industry, we immediately found out that on the supply and so seller side, there was a huge power. So that's where we focused with two main techniques. So that's where we started with two main techniques. So the first one was like onboarding, few suppliers, So having the risk that you were describing before, that you go, you onboard like hundreds of suppliers and then you discover there is no demand for them, So we really started with few of them, like 15, 20. That was like, the initial number for us to start. typically very focused in one category. So we started with the leather handbags, for example, because we saw with some like a ghost or fake test, like Karina were explaining that was like the killing category, with apparently highest conversion rate and so on. So defining one category, going there and finding the first 15, 20 suppliers. And the key to convince them was really pushing on the opportunity, that they can get many orders, they can grow their sales. This was like a very strong value proposition in what we saw for them. So we started with this first and then trying to attract the demand. The second thing that was also useful, in particular at the beginning, when you don't have enough demand, is also try to provide the supply side, some additional value. A little bit like, for example, Open Table did at the beginning. So I think we are in the B2B marketplace space, and these are always like SaaS-enabled marketplaces. And for us, so the key part was the supply. So immediately we started developing some SaaS tool for the supply. So to add the initial value, even though you have no revenue and no orders at the beginning. So this also was key because supply was coming in and they immediately had some value from the platform. And after, they also start receiving some orders. So this was a way to, start from that side and, lock them in, basically.
Fascinating, Ciro, and we'll come back to the kind of software SaaS-enabled marketplace a bit later. Can you just give us a snippet of what tool, what value you were building for the suppliers?
Yeah, so basically it was like a sort of, still today, a simplified version of an order management system in which basically they can do some basic stuff. They can collect orders, they can upload their own orders, they can fulfill the orders, because we found out that the fulfillment was a big pain point. So even orders that they had outside of the platform, but we can help with the fulfillment. This was already some very simple but relevant value that we could add to them. And so even if, there was obviously at the beginning low demand, and not so many orders, but still they were happy of being on the platform.
Yeah. And maybe, Martin, I guess as a PSP, and given your portfolio, you've seen hundreds of marketplaces over the years, and many of which, I guess, have struggled with that initial ramp up of overcoming the chicken and egg. What percentage of marketplaces do you see reaching escape velocity?
That's the question is always there, but if you need to have kind of a shortcut, and that's what you already said, Carolina and Ciro, is that the supply, the offering part is absolutely critical. And this is really where the first, I would say, initial focus is usually brought by the marketplaces we're serving. And just two anecdotes, which are to me quite striking. It's in the B2C world, but can be easily applicable, I think, in the B2B world. Remember Uber, the driver were paid in the car to sleep, waiting for the demand, but the offering was so good when suddenly someone was looking for a car, the guy was actually downstairs, and so he could have picked up the traveler in a couple of minutes. So the quality of the offering was super important. And the second anecdote that I think could be useful to share is when you look at Accor, this big hotel chain, you ask them, who are your customers? Are they the travelers or are they the hotel, the franchise? And they say, my customer first. Of course, there are two, but my first customer, they are the franchise. And if I have very high quality hotels, I know the travelers will be coming. And so, of course, each marketplace has its own, I would say, story and value creation. But usually there is a strong initial focus that needs to be brought on the offering side.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned Accor, because they're one of the success stories in the world of B2B marketplaces.
You can fake the initial supply as we did. Like we put up fake products. So I think that's also a way to sort of solve that first.
Yeah. And I guess you must all have a massive sigh of relief the day you've got the first working MVP of the marketplace, and you see that a bit like a mayonnaise, it's starting to coagulate and take shape. Now I'm gonna turn to Ilias, because we've been talking about attracting customers, but retaining them is also super important. And the big enemy of of any marketplace is disintermediation, leakage, when customers, sellers and buyers have found each other, and they then happily trade together, bypassing the marketplace to avoid paying the commission. And I think that's a general problem, but it's super acute in B2B, where commercial relationships are very long lasting, and typically once you found a good supplier, you will go back many times per month over several years. So how do you keep those trades inside the marketplace? What's, at least in your sector, what's the key to retention?
Yes, first of all, it's interesting to see that in your first question, there are so many different strategies. In our case, we followed a different strategy because we had the wiki side of the business already there. So we immediately, when we opened our marketplace, we immediately added thousands of suppliers. So we had the supply issue solved. But this is also a problem, because then you immediately have to find and put all of your efforts to the buyer side. So
maybe
that,
a quick one. Yeah. When you did the wiki side of the business, was it within, with a view to doing the marketplace later on?
Yes, the idea was, okay, we've been working with, I have some experience with Google. So previously I was working with a lot of startups, and I was seeing that, okay, these startups are creating now a lot of content to start attracting customers. So initially when we created the wiki side, we said, okay, let's build a little bit more on the content side, so that when we launch the marketplace, we have at least the supply side solved.
Nice.
So, and of course, all this brought us other benefits, because also it had a lot of SEO, let's say, benefits, which also helped us with the buyers. But at least when we started, our main focus was, to attract the buyers.
Right.
And later on, now that we've grown, I think the main challenge is, okay, we've now, out of this huge pool of suppliers, we've identified, let's say, the products that bring us more value, they have higher demand. So now we're just focusing and trying to increase the depth of and the size of the suppliers in specific products. So it's, and also food is a little bit different, because there, in many cases in the last few years, a lot of shortage of supply. So having all these suppliers from the beginning, it allowed us not to, let's say, stop selling when there was shortage of a specific product. So this was interesting. Yeah, but to your question on leakage, which I know that concerns everybody.
Every investor that wants to invest in a B2B marketplace is going to be wondering, oh my God, what's the risk of bypass here in this business?
So initially it was a huge threat for us as well. So we had to tackle it, but I also found it as an opportunity, because it allows you to offer more value. So for me, if you just base your marketplace value on, price and discovery and nothing else, this is not a B2C marketplace where people care about convenience more than price in some cases. Okay, so for example, I would prefer to pay €1 more on an app to deliver my food, but when it comes to B2B, you count every single euro. So initially we had the same problem, but gradually we started building first of all some walls, but then a lot of value around the marketplace, offering more services. And more, let's say, productivity tools, because someone mentioned before that all marketplace will also evolve into a combination of SaaS and marketplace. So we started offering added value services, which now help us keep most of our customers without having any leakage. But if you ask me, I think the problem mostly comes in the beginning of the marketplace, where also you have another element. So in some cases, we had sellers doing one sale and then saying, okay, I'm going to do it directly. Now that they get a lot of sales out of, let's say, WikiFarmer, they're afraid also to skip us, because there's also the opportunity that we may stop them operating in the marketplace because they might go against the terms and conditions, which is part of it. But I would say that value is more important. So a carrot is more important than a stick in that case. And I see a lot of people that when you build value, they want to stick to the marketplace and continue operating like that.
Super interesting.
Just last one. What I've seen leakage coming, being higher in smaller customers, which don't really understand the value of losing a lot of time calling the supplier, doing everything that the marketplace does because probably they're too small and they care about every single euro and they don't count productivity. But I think this was the point from our side.
Yeah. And Carolina, how does this resonate with your own sector?
Which parts of it? Because I think it's a bit, the sector is really broad and we do so many different things at Circulate as well.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking more that point around, how do you keep people on the platform and avoid disintermediation?
Yeah, because there's different parts. Yeah, because that's different parts. Well, it means that different parts of what we do, because we are this sort of SaaS. We combine SaaS with marketplaces. So we start off as talking about being a marketplace, but now we actually transfer more to being this tool where we have so many different parts in our business, which is just marketplace. And I think that's a little bit the solution there of ensuring that you provide end-to-end value, not only gathering the supply, but like helping them understand what is it that I actually need and how do I find and have like intelligent search and like how do I find the right things on this marketplace. But then also we sit on all the data about as marketplaces, and now in the time of AI, where data is like the gold and the proprietary information. As a marketplace, we sit on. I would claim that I sit on most packaging data in the entire world. I know more about I have more data on the packaging than the supplier itself has, because we've been banging our hands to what to get all this data on each item. So having all the data, be able to then offer services of tracking the data, exporting the data, providing the users with insights on like how much money have you been spending on different categories, and also some intelligence. And like if you were to change this and this packaging to these ones, you could save this much cost, or in my case, environmental impact and so on. So there's so many different areas that you can build onto a marketplace that the marketplace itself actually is like it's our fundamentals, but our core and value add lies in all these other things. And I think that's one of the key things here to sort of move away from just being the intermediate.
It's fascinating because what I hear from the three of you is like, the marketplace is great, but there's a big element of finding additional value beyond the discovery and the matching that you're gradually building into the marketplace, and you're much more than in B2C. Now, I think when we speak to successful B2B marketplaces, that SaaS component is becoming very, very crucial. And in your case, Caroline, in your case, there's even the data component where you're able to monetize and create value for the end users by bringing them insights that they would never have had on their own on their market.
Yeah, and I think that's the way as marketplace we need to realize this data element, that we sit on all the data on all the products and suppliers out there. What can we do with that data? But we also sit on all the data, not only on transactions, but also how people are behaving in the purchasing process. So can we use that data and sell those insights and knowledge back to the suppliers? And can we sell the product information and the purchase information back to the buyers? And I think there's so many regulations now also that you're supposed to know about your supply chain so much more and have all that data. So for us, it's about selling that supply chain data back as well.
Yeah, of course.
Martin. Just a very quick add-on. What we see also on the B2B is that sometimes those marketplaces are starting without being transactional, because they want to understand, supply, demand, ICP, and so they have, I would say, a first workshop or first streams to be built up. But one of the, and I'm not saying this is the only one, but one of the things that they do to keep people on the platform, to gain view on the data and to increase the stickiness, is to make those marketplaces transactional. And so to bring a payment element into this connection is one of the elements that makes stickiness higher. So just linking it to the payment piece.
Yeah, and I also think like the multi-basket kind of marketplace model is always easier. That it's not one buyer and one seller, but the fact that one buyer is buying from several sellers. You could move off the platform, but then you need to have 6 supplier relationships and put 6 orders in. And for the data, you then need to gather all your transaction data from these 6 purchases and track that. So it's just, I think,
absolutely
in those cases.
Yeah. And you receive 6 different invoices in 6 different formats, not necessarily with the right info, and then your purchasing process becomes a nightmare.
Yeah.
Maybe before we leave this topic, Ilias, you started alluding to some of the value-adding tools that you were starting to bake into WikiFarmer. Can you give us a couple of concrete examples of things that you do beyond discovery and matching?
Yeah, our goal is to create a platform that fully automates all the processes from discovery to after delivery, let's say post-sale. So, in the agricultural world, there are different services that you can provide, from logistics and transportation. Of course, financing is significant because it actually helps us disintermediate the market.
Yeah.
And also quality checks, which means which can be done in a scalable way, actually. And then you also have a large process of claiming. So we're trying to digitize also the claiming, which means the disagreements between buyers and sellers. So even becoming an authority type of trust between a buyer and a seller, especially in our industry, and when it comes to larger transactions, it means a lot. And when all this comes together, we're talking about a unified product that not only covers discovery and ordering, but also the payment, the financing part, the logistics, the post-sales, and the quality. So this is a big thing. And of course, as Carolina mentioned, data also is becoming significant for us. We have not created the product yet, but soon enough, our buyers and sellers will be able to see, is this the right price I purchased? Is it not? What's the current price? Things like that. So I think all this together brings, I think will bring leakage much lower. So at a very low stage, because we offer a very competitive service, which allows people to be more productive in that way. This is the key.
Yeah. Guys, I realize that.
By the way, sorry, I mentioned also before, I don't feel that nowadays, especially in food, a lot of people want to be locked in with one or two suppliers because there is shortage, there are quality issues, so everybody needs to have options. So I think this is also a huge benefit for B2B marketplaces.
Where the marketplace model directly answers this problem. Maybe I'm gonna move to a slightly more controversial topic now. I'm gonna ask each of you, as marketplace founders, what's the biggest mistake that you've made along the way? And maybe Ciro, do you want to have a crack?
Yeah, sure. So on our side, on my side, actually, the biggest mistake that I made from the very beginning was to assume that given, the pace of digitalization and innovation on the B2C e-commerce world, in particular after COVID, I would have found the same, kind of, readiness in the B2B world. That was like the biggest mistake, because we really went on assuming that, given that now basically everyone after COVID, is used to buy, something for yourself on Amazon and so on, then, why not also for your business? And actually this was like a huge mistake because, first of all, as we know, one of the trends of why there is now this digital like a B2B commerce is because, there is also many millennials coming into key position in brand retailers. But in many cases, most of our retailers were still like, led by, older people, not so used with digital solution and not so comfortable also with digital solution. On top of the fact that one of the key aspects, for example, in our case, obviously, in our vertical, is really also like assessing the quality of the product with the touch and feel. Or another barrier was that we also sell clothing on our platform, and we mostly carry like European brands, so like Italian brands and so on, selling worldwide, but the size and the fitting for clothing in Europe is different in US and different again in Asia, So there were many like kind of aspects, They made it very difficult at the beginning and still also today, to like completely bring, new businesses, new retailers on a digital platform. So the way that we had to tackle this was really, and this assumption was wrong at the beginning, and so made us also lose some time in the first couple of months. Then we realized the problem and that we had to change approach. So we tried to also like combine, some sort of like physical, like participating to some trade show and so on, plus obviously the digital part. And also, for example, acquiring some buyers in the physical world and then bringing them to the digital platform for the second, third order and so on. And this has worked pretty well so far. But that's, I would say, was like the biggest mistake at the beginning, because it really made us like with this strong assumption lose, probably a couple of months.
That's super interesting, and that's actually a piece of feedback that I've heard in certain verticals where either you have super high order values, like you're buying a piece of machinery or whatever, or like in fashion, there's an element of where you need to touch or feel sometimes, and you have to go omni-channel, and it cannot be pure online. Yeah, super interesting. Carolina, what would be your own take on what's the horror story along the way?
I think we can agree that you make mistakes every day, but you only realize afterwards, right? But then you just convert them into learnings instead, and make sure to not make the same mistake twice. Nothing for us. It's knowing like when sort of scaling your business and your tech simultaneously, because you can't build a tech platform that can take on thousands of customers if you don't have any customers. But so when do you have enough traction to actually then focus on building more scalable back office operations? And when we kicked off, we had a lot of inbound demand. We've also had lots of inbound because this topic is very sort of in hot topic at the moment. But instead of like then investing more in building scalable tech, we just kept like brought on more people, which is like a very good way to burn a lot of money. I think you would burn the same money if you would put on tech, but then that tech can actually help you for the future as well. Where if you burn it on money on hours, those hours are then gone. So I think I would probably have dared to say to my investors as well that this like we have the traction, it's there. Let's like pause focusing on growing the numbers with this like human model, and now dare to not build
industrialize
but like scalability automations instead of just like the other thing you want to show this goes numbers like this. So you never want to break to actually invest in tech and then go again. So that would I would say like, but it only bites you back in the future if you don't take those investments early on.
Yeah, it's always tricky to have the balance between short-term, long-term investments.
Because you don't want to spend half a year building a platform that nobody's using. So it's like this.
It's tricky. And what about you, Elias? What's your war anecdote?
Well, I'm completely aligned with Ciro. This was also my illusion when we started in the very early days that, okay, everything will work online. We can the look and feel should be like a B2C marketplace. And this influenced our product, the way we were invoicing also. So gradually we changed, because actually it's a very different mindset when it comes to B2C versus B2B. So we're even now changing our product, looking like more like a trading platform rather than, a place where you can see nice pictures and buy like Amazon.
Yeah.
And also, we're naive enough also to think, okay, if we don't invoice customers, get invoiced by suppliers, and just have a commission, let's say, invoice, everything will work fine. But then this created frustration with accounting departments because they were depositing the money to us, and they were getting an invoice from a supplier, or at the same time we couldn't also become large suppliers to the B2B world, so because our invoice was not there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say thinking that things will work as seamlessly as they might work in the B2C marketplace world, it didn't work. But I think this is also why you have so few B2B marketplaces. Even the hundreds that you showed us compared to the B2C marketplaces are still low, because still early days. And I think
we're early days.
Yes, in 10 years or 15 years, maybe everything will work fully digitally, right? Okay, you always have offline things. We also have to send samples to our customers because we have to test and analyze the products in some cases. But I think it's going to be people will be much more, let's say, educated in that front. I mean, because we also thought, okay, these people are used to using apps, etc. But there are indeed people around 55. So there's going to be a generational shift in the next 10 to 15 years. So yeah, of course, maybe in 15 years we'll have to change our product again.
But people who are 55 are still in business for another 10 to 15 years, and they're they're decision makers usually. So there's a need clearly in. But just for reference, also for the audience, what's your average order size, Ilias?
I mean, it varies per month, but it's around 20,000, let's say.
So it's already pretty large transactions. So you can see why digitizing something where you have 50, 100K transactions, people want to have a sample first.
Definitely, it's pretty normal. Yes. I think the smaller the transaction, the closest it goes to B2C type of acting. While when it's a large transaction, they wouldn't be sure and they need to verify things. But that's okay,
Louis, maybe, and don't know whether it will resonate with you guys, but one of the mistakes we tend to see, which is not a strategic mistake, but more of an operational challenge, is the underestimation of the KYC part. So, bringing on board seller is something, convincing them is, of course, the biggest part, but then you need to KYC them. And so we tend to see some platforms that are very excited to launch and to go live. And there is this KYC that needs to be done. And of course, the PSP is there to support, but it's not always the case. But we tend to see quite some platforms that underestimate the workload and the change management and the educations that needs to be brought to the seller through the KYC. And so that's a pattern we tend to see also.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. By the way, this thing about KYC, I was at Money 2020 last week, and it's like one of the top issues that we face as an industry. It's extremely costly. It's like a big disruption to the UX, but with the onus on anti-money laundering and so on, that's unavoidable. Actually, that's also part of how you create trust on the platform. And Ilias, I think that's something you said. And I guess for all of you, at some point, you're already at that stage of maturity where you're part of the money flows of your respective platforms. This is, sometimes like a bit of a tipping point for marketplaces. And, Martin, can you perhaps tell us how that transition works and perhaps what is specific about B2B versus B2C there?
Yeah, of course. So trust, payment, we know that payment is a very sensitive moment in the customer journey. And so that needs to be well thought. And of course, there are some parallel in the marketplace world between B2C and B2B, but payment is somehow different because the payment means are not the same. So if you want to create trust, to our view, first, you really need to understand who is going to pay. And in that case, to bring the right payment methods. And in the B2B, we tend to see the classical ones, which are bank transfer up to 79, 80%. You see direct debit as well. And then you see also, it depends on the industry you are in, but corporate cards, that remains also a pretty big one. So having
especially in the US.
Yeah, exactly, especially out of the US. So
And also, especially that based on the size of the transaction as well. It's like you can use corporate card for smaller things, but if you buy something for 20 or 30,000 euros, swipe your card.
50K of packaging, that's not going to be a credit card usually.
Exactly. So offering the right payment means is one critical element. But then there is a payment means, and then there is the conditions. So, under which conditions you deliver this payment means. And of course, together with Okodo, there are a couple of things which are super critical. So we talk about payment terms, which is super important in the offline world. And so because it's super important in the offline world, it becomes, of course, super important in the online world, because the procurement manager, they have the same standards, they have the same objective, and this to be applied as well. So trust comes with the right payment means and the right conditions associated to those payment means. And there is maybe a sub-element which is more UX, is making sure that you don't just offer a payment page, that you really bring this payment page or these payment experiences into an overall UX a look and feel which is embedded into your platform, making sure that the customer is not having the impressions to go away from the core experiences. And so here it's more of a marketing and UX approach, but this is also super critical. So this is what I would say, Louis, as the 2-3 key elements to bring trust on the payment side.
Folks, I think we could spend really hours diving into each of those issues. I think just the KYC bit and onboarding suppliers at scale could be a follow-up webinar, because that has emerged over the past few months as a common pain point that I've heard from every operator.
They also think about deciding whether you should be merchant of record or how you. That is a whole.
This is a whole, by itself, and like the different models between merchant of record, agent, pure intermediary,
who's the seller, and who's
having an invoicing mandate, and so on. There's one question which has just come, which is easy to answer. It's can we reach out to the panelists on LinkedIn? Guys, are you open to so yes. Then there's a question that came that says, and that's probably a good one to wrap up, which would be, for each of you, what do you expect to be the biggest challenge over the next 2 years? Maybe if I go around my screen, Ilias, do you wanna start off?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you cannot.
That's the $1 million question.
You cannot plan for 2 years, because always you have challenges coming in that you don't expect. But I think in our case, the more we grow the platform, the more we bring the service together. It's how you create a unified product that fits the industry. So it's mostly on the tech and product side, and then of course what our plans are to expand also to more geographies, and some geographies are more difficult than the ones we are currently in, because the more you go to less developed countries, it's much more difficult. So that we expect this to be a challenge which we're ready to take, actually, because we see a lot of potential for growth.
Nice. What countries do you have in mind for that expansion?
Well, saying that we want to initially digitize the Mediterranean production. The next step for us would be probably Northern Africa. Like you have Tunisia, which is a great olive oil producer. Egypt, which produces anything from oranges, potatoes, like great production country. Turkey as well, huge production country. So I think the rest of the Mediterranean would be very interesting for us. And on the supply side, on the buy side, we're kind of country agnostic, because people come and demand this product. So
super interesting. So product and geographical expansion. What about you, Carolina?
I think it's always coming down to finding the entrepreneurial, driven, tech-minded people, and make sure that you have a tech team and tech that just moves just as fast as the business. I mean, I am in this industry, which is really on fire and a lot of tailwind. So efficient tech and finding the right people at the right time. And I think funding as well. So when you're growing, and for that you need funding. And in this environment we're in today, finding funding from the right kind of investors. And that's also struggling a bit with like the benchmarks, because as a sort of B2B marketplace going into more SaaS, it's like, what benchmarks are they using and what metrics should we reach? And we're comparable to a B2C marketplace as well. So I think that's something you guys could do, educate the VC side on sort of how they should measure us versus others.
Yeah, and also the goalposts seem to be shifting a bit. But yeah, it's clearly there's this category of B2B marketplaces is not yet as well understood, and many people look at it as they would consider a B2C marketplace. And I think that, just the level of repeat business, the retention, those metrics are actually quite different.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think that the onboarding is so much slower and the growth is so much slower, but when you have the relationship is much longer and the values are much higher. But that in the B2C, you can grow really, really fast, but the value and the sort of loyalty is really low. But sort of nature.
Different animal. And what about you, Ciro? What do you see as the biggest challenges?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, obviously, what Ilias and Carolina said, I completely agree. Let me put on a different perspective. I mean, for sure, like fundraising is one of the most tricky challenges, not just for marketplaces, B2B marketplaces, also for other businesses in this period. Obviously, probably more for us because clearly it's a kind of business that requires quite some capital in order to grow. Yeah, and I think the challenge also around this is also to prove somehow. So two things. So first of all, we are still in the in the very beginning of this, let's say, of B2B marketplaces, and our assumption, like on Mirta's side, obviously this can be proved wrong, like in the next couple of years exactly, is that I mean, this first wave could be different from what we will see in the future. No, like today we have seen also many generalists also in our field, like in the retail space, like from the fair to anchor store and so on. Not sure that these kind of players are the ones also that will succeed in the future, where probably vertical can have an edge, vertical marketplaces, because particularly for all these SaaS elements that we all described. Clearly, when you can go vertical in one field, in one industry, you can add more value. So, so the uncertainty on what will happen in the next couple of years from a strategic perspective, together with the need to prove from these business models that they can be sustainable, and burn less cash, and show some proof of margins and so on. I think these two challenges, could make very different fundraising in the next couple of years. So yeah, that's how I would see for me. It's like the main headache right now.
Thanks, Ciro. And Martin, do you have some thoughts with the PSP hat on?
Yes, I think on our side, the key challenge will be how to balance the increasing needs in terms of regulations while remaining very competitive on the UX and the growth necessary for the platform. And so it's really two legs, I would say, body, or it's a two legs challenge, making sure that we fit regulatory needs, which is a must-have for those platforms to keep growing and to gain, I would say, the reputation, the credibility that they need to have, while remaining very strong on innovation, UX, and conversion. And so this is the challenge over, I would say, the next 2, but maybe to the next 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, it's been about an hour. So now it's time to say a big thank you to the panelists, a big thank you to everyone who connected, and I hope you enjoyed all those deep insights that were shared. I also invite you to join the Knowledge Hub. You will receive your personalized invite for that. And I guess, in the limited time that we had, we managed to cover some of the specificities of this growing world of B2B marketplaces. And I think what this discussion also highlighted is that B2B marketplaces are also very sector specific, and that all of the operators here on the panel have found different strategies to overcome these challenges. So I invite also everyone to feel free to continue the conversation offline via LinkedIn, and we'll also post to each of you so that you can follow up. So thanks everyone, thanks to the panelists, and we see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.